There is a certain weight to the air in Mississippi. It's a humidity that clings not just to the skin, but to the soul. It hangs in the branches of ancient oaks, draped in veils of Spanish moss. It rises from the murky waters of the bayous and settles in the foundations of antebellum homes that have seen more history than any textbook could ever record. This is the Deep South, a land where the past is not just remembered. It is a living, breathing entity. But within that living history, there are shadows. There are stories that defy simple explanation, events so strange, so unsettling, that they have become permanent fixtures in the state's identity. These are not just ghost stories, but profound, unsolved mysteries. They are questions left unanswered, puzzles with missing pieces, and terrors that came in the night and vanished without a trace. Today, we journey into the heart of that mystery. We will explore 3 true events that still haunt the state of Mississippi. We'll investigate a bizarre reign of terror that gripped a town in fear, uncover a gruesome secret sealed behind a tavern wall for over a century, and look to the stars for answers to a story that challenged our very understanding of reality. These are the tales that prove that sometimes the truth is far stranger and far more terrifying than any fiction. Our first mystery takes us to the coastal city of Pascagoula in the year 1942. As America plunged deeper into the chaos of World War II, Pascagoula was a boomtown. Its shipyards worked around the clock, building the vessels that would help win the war. The city was filled with soldiers, sailors, and factory workers. There was a tension in the air, a constant awareness of the conflict raging overseas. But in the summer of 1942, a new and deeply personal terror would emerge, one that came not from a foreign enemy, but from the shadows of their own homes. It began on the night of June 5th at a place that should have been a sanctuary, a convent for the Our Lady of Victory's Catholic Church. 2 young nuns, sleeping in their beds, awoke the next morning feeling strangely uneasy. It wasn't until they looked in the mirror that they discovered the source of their dread. During the night, an intruder had crept silently into their room and, with meticulous care, snipped off a thick lock of each woman's hair. There was no sign of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. The only evidence of the violation was the severed hair and a lingering sense of profound unease. The incident was so bizarre, so unprecedented, that it was initially dismissed as a strange prank. But it was only the beginning. A week later, the terror escalated. The intruder, now dubbed the Phantom Barber by a bewildered press, struck a private home. The victims were the Heidelberg family. Late one night, the family was awakened by a strange, sweet smell in their daughter's bedroom. They rushed in to find their 6-year-old girl, Mary Evelyn, sleeping soundly, but a disturbing scene awaited them. The window screen had been cut open, and scattered on her pillow were clippings of her blonde hair. The intruder had been in the room, feet from her bed, and had vanished as silently as he came. The sweet smell was later identified as chloroform. The Phantom was not just a prankster. He was a predator who drugged his victims to perform his strange ritual. Panic began to grip Pascagoula. This was a violation of the deepest kind. An invisible enemy who could enter any home, at any time, and stand over sleeping children. The motive was maddeningly obscure. It wasn't robbery. It wasn't violence, at least not in the conventional sense. It was a psychological terror, an act that stripped residents of their sense of security. The attacks continued. Another young girl, Carol Petey, was targeted next. The Phantom Barber crept into her room, snipped her hair, and disappeared. The city plunged into a state of siege. Doors were bolted, windows were nailed shut. Fathers sat up all night with shotguns across their laps, guarding their families. Vigilante groups roamed the streets, searching for any suspicious character. The police were baffled, chasing shadows and following dead-end leads. Theories swirled. Was he a Nazi agent, sent to disrupt the town's vital war efforts by sowing fear and chaos? Was he a local fetishist, collecting trophies from the town's young women? The terror reached a fever pitch. The pressure on the police to make an arrest was immense. Finally, they seemingly got their man. They arrested a 57-year-old local chemist named William Dolan. The evidence against him was circumstantial at best. A bundle of human hair had been found near his home. Under intense interrogation, Dolan confessed to the crimes. The city breathed a collective sigh of relief. But Dolan soon recanted, claiming his confession had been beaten out of him. He passed a lie detector test, and his alibis for the nights of the attacks seemed to hold up. Despite this, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The town believed the nightmare was over. But it wasn't. While Dolan was in custody, the Phantom Barber struck again. The attacks resumed, identical in their chilling execution. It was now clear, William Dolan was not the Phantom. He was eventually released, a victim of a town desperate for answers. Then, as mysteriously as it began, the terror stopped. After a summer of fear, the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula simply vanished. There were no more cut screens, no more chloroformed rags, no more stolen locks of hair. He was never seen or heard from again. The case remains one of Mississippi's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Who was the Phantom Barber? Was he a resident of Pascagoula? Someone who lived and worked alongside his victims, who simply decided to stop his bizarre hobby? Or was he a transient who moved on to another town? The motive remains the most haunting question. What drove a man to risk his life, sneaking into homes guarded by armed and terrified citizens, for something as ephemeral as a lock of hair? The answer was lost to the humid Mississippi nights, leaving behind only a bizarre and terrifying footnote in the annals of American crime. From the wartime anxieties of Pascagoula, we travel back in time to the oldest and perhaps most haunted city in Mississippi, Natchez. Perched on a bluff overlooking the mighty Mississippi River, Natchez was once one of the wealthiest cities in America. Its streets are lined with magnificent antebellum mansions, each with its own history, its own secrets, and its own ghosts. Our second mystery resides in the oldest standing building in the entire state, a place where a gruesome discovery brought a dark legend to life. This is the haunting of King's Tavern. The story of King's Tavern begins around 1769. Originally built as a blockhouse for Fort Panmure, it was later acquired by a man named Richard King and transformed into an inn and tavern. Situated at the end of the notoriously dangerous Natchez Trace, the tavern was a rough-and-tumble establishment, a place where weary travelers, boatmen, and bandits came to rest. It saw more than its fair share of brawls, schemes, and almost certainly murder. The building itself seems to have absorbed this long and often violent history. For centuries, rumors and legends swirled around the old tavern. Locals whispered stories of strange noises, of objects moving on their own, and of a beautiful, sorrowful female spirit who would appear in the reflections of mirrors. The staff and patrons grew accustomed to the building's quirks. But no one was prepared for what lay hidden inside its very walls. In the 1930s, the building underwent a major renovation. As workers began to dismantle a wall next to the main room's massive fireplace, they made a shocking discovery. The wall was hollow. Sealed within a small, dark cavity behind the bricks were the skeletal remains of 3 human bodies. 2 of the skeletons were clearly male. The third was female. The discovery sent a shockwave through Natchez, as it seemed to provide gruesome proof for the tavern's most enduring and tragic legend, the story of Madeline. According to the legend, Madeline was a beautiful young woman who worked at the tavern in the late 18th century and was the mistress of the tavern's owner, Richard King. Their affair was common knowledge, a source of great shame and anger for King's wife. One day, Madeline vanished without a trace. When questioned, Richard King claimed she had simply packed her bags and run off with a new lover. But the town gossiped. Many believed that Mrs. King, in a fit of jealous rage, had conspired to have Madeline murdered to end the affair once and for all. The discovery of the female skeleton behind the fireplace gave terrifying credence to the story. It was widely believed that the remains were those of the unfortunate Madeline, her body sealed in a makeshift tomb where no one would ever find it. The identities of the two men found with her have never been confirmed. But the prevailing theory is that they were her lovers, discovered with her by a vengeful Mrs. King and disposed of in the same brutal fashion. With this discovery, the paranormal activity in King's Tavern reportedly intensified, as if the unearthing of her body had awakened Madeline's spirit. She is now considered the tavern's primary ghostly resident. Her apparition is most often seen in the main dining room. Patrons have reported seeing a beautiful, dark-haired woman in an 18th century dress appear for a moment in the large mirror over the fireplace before fading away. The sounds of a woman softly crying are often heard coming from the second floor, believed to be the area where she once lived. Madeline is not a malevolent spirit. She is described as sorrowful and lost. But she is not alone. The tavern is also said to be haunted by a more aggressive male entity, a shadowy figure often seen near the bar who gives off an aura of menace. Some believe this is the spirit of one of Madeline's murdered lovers. And perhaps most disturbingly, the distinct sound of a baby crying is often heard coming from the fireplace area, leading to speculation that Madeline may have had a child whose fate was also sealed that terrible night. Today, King's Tavern is a popular restaurant, but its reputation as a paranormal hotspot is undeniable. Paranormal investigators have captured electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs of a woman whispering, or have recorded drastic drops in temperature around the fireplace. It is a place where history and tragedy are forever intertwined, where a dark secret was literally mortared into the walls of the building. The mystery of who killed Madeline and her companions, and why they were sealed away so crudely, has never been officially solved. But her spirit remains, a permanent resident of Mississippi's oldest building, forever haunting the place of her untimely death. For our final mystery, we return to the coastal city of Pascagoula, but we leave the realm of earthly criminals and vengeful ghosts behind. This story did not come from the shadows of a home or the dark corners of history. It came from the sky. On the night of October 11th, 1973, two men would have an experience so profound and so bizarre that it would not only change their lives forever but would also become one of the most famous and credible UFO cases in modern history. Our subjects were two shipyard co-workers, 42-year-old Charles Hickson and 19-year-old Calvin Parker. On that cool autumn evening, they decided to do some fishing off an abandoned pier on the west bank of the Pascagoula River. It was a quiet, secluded spot. The sun had set, and the only sounds were the gentle lapping of the water and the distant hum of the shipyard. Suddenly, a strange, zipping sound cut through the night air. The two men looked up and saw a terrifying sight. Hovering just a few feet above the water was an oval-shaped craft, about 30 to 40 feet long, bathed in a brilliant blue light. It made no sound other than a low, steady hum. A hatch opened, and three bizarre figures emerged, floating towards them. Hickson and Parker were frozen in sheer terror. Their description of the beings has never wavered. They were about 5 feet tall, with pale, wrinkled gray skin and no discernible eyes. They had carrot-like growths where a nose and ears would be. Their hands were like crab pincers or mittens with a single thumb. Two of the beings grabbed Hickson, while the third took hold of Parker, who fainted from fright. Hickson remained conscious, paralyzed, as he was floated aboard the strange craft. Inside, the light was blinding. He found himself in a sterile room, where he was examined by a large, mechanical eye that scanned his entire body. He felt no pain, only a profound sense of helplessness. After what felt like 20 minutes, the examination was over. Hickson and the still unconscious Parker were floated back down to the pier. The craft then shot up into the sky and disappeared. Shaken to their core, the two men sat in their car for nearly an hour, trying to process the impossible thing that had just happened to them. They were terrified. Who would believe them? Fearing ridicule but feeling they had to tell someone, they drove to the local sheriff's office. As expected, the deputies were highly skeptical. They questioned Hickson and Parker intensely, looking for any holes in their story. Finding none, the sheriff decided to try a classic interrogation tactic. He left the two men alone in an interview room with a hidden tape recorder, fully expecting to record them laughing about the hoax they were trying to pull. What the tape captured instead became the single most compelling piece of evidence in the case. Instead of fabricating details, the recording captured the raw, unfiltered terror of two men trying to grapple with a traumatic event. Parker was near hysterical, weeping and praying. Hickson, the older of the two, tried to calm him down, his own voice trembling with fear. They weren't concocting a story, they were reliving a nightmare. When the sheriff listened to the tape, his skepticism vanished. These men genuinely believed they had been abducted. The story exploded. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a respected astronomer who had worked on the Air Force's Project Blue Book, flew to Mississippi to investigate. He too was convinced of their sincerity. The men underwent hypnosis and passed lie detector tests. Their story was subjected to intense scrutiny from the media, the military, and the public. They became instant celebrities, but the experience shattered their lives. They were hounded by reporters and ridiculed by skeptics. Their quiet lives were over. For decades, the Pascagoula abduction has remained a benchmark in UFO research. The secret tape provided a unique window into the psychological state of the witnesses immediately following the event, lending their incredible story a powerful layer of credibility. Charles Hickson maintained his story until his death in 2011. Calvin Parker, who had tried to disappear from the public eye for years, eventually came forward again, writing a book and confirming that the event was real and had haunted him his entire life. What truly happened on the banks of the Pascagoula River that night? Were two ordinary fishermen really taken aboard an alien spacecraft? Or was it a shared delusion, a hallucination brought on by unknown forces? A phantom prowler who vanished into thin air, a murdered mistress sealed behind a wall, and visitors from a world unknown. The mysteries of Mississippi are as deep and murky as the river that gives the state its name. They show us that just beneath the surface of our mundane reality lie questions that have no easy answers. They are reminders that some secrets are never uncovered, some crimes are never solved, and some experiences are so far beyond our comprehension that they can only be classified as a mystery. These stories haunt the state not because they are tales of ghosts and monsters, but because they are true, and their final chapters have yet to be written. If you enjoyed this exploration of Mississippi's greatest mysteries, please like this video and share it with your friends. Let us know in the comments which story you found the most compelling. Until next time, keep questioning, and never stop searching for the truth.